Hello everyone, I hope you can hear me. Welcome to our webinar about App Plus Web. Thanks for being here this morning. Thanks for having your coffees with you. Thanks for your having breakfast. And please let me know in the chat that you can hear me and everything is good, and then I will start. Okay, I'm getting some internal feedback that it's working perfectly on our side. So what I will do is I'll go ahead. Oh, thanks, Freddie. All good indeed. Thanks, Lauren. All right, guys. So here we go. Today we're going to talk about App Plus Web. Before I introduce myself and my colleague who will also take over the second part, I just want to talk about the scope of the webinar a bit. And I also want to let you guys know that you can ask any questions through the live chat on the YouTube interface. And you don't have to wait until after, but if you have forgotten to ask something, you can use the form that you will find at ftfe.co to ask any questions to 255, and we will get back to you as soon as we can. So today it's going to be me. To the untrained eye, my name is Can Oscar. Actually, it's Can Özçer. It's a Turkish name, C is J in Turkish, and I'm head of expertise and innovation in 55's London office. Second half of the presentation, I'll be joined by Ludo, who's my counterpart in our Parisian office. Ludo, by day, is head of expertise and analytics. By night, he's the lead singer of a Parisian underground band called The Driver. So he will drive the presentation for you. He might also sing. We'll see. Yeah, so before we dive into that, I want to talk a bit about 55. So this is the point where you turn off your ad blockers. We are a data company that try to help our clients use data better in order to improve their customer experiences. A better put version of that saying is we help brands leverage data and technology to craft superior brand experiences. Our range of services include these four pillars. One major differentiator I think we have from our competitors or consultancies in the same space is that we do not buy media. We only do media consulting, and we partner up with the agencies and our clients to make sure that data is being used in the best practice fashion in their overall media activities. But that is not the limits of our scope. We also make sure that data architecture that feeds all this is solid, so that your activations are actually solid themselves. We do customer experience, mainly CRM and CRO, and we do strategy consulting in terms of what tools or what tech stack our clients need to use to achieve their goals. Today is going to be a bit more about data architecture because we're going to be talking about the new version of App Plus Web. And we have some wonderful clients that trust us to help them become slightly better. In digital, they're already great, but we do a lot of projects across a lot of different verticals, from retail to tech to FMCG to travel. And we have multiple offices across multiple time zones. I'm currently streaming in from London, and Ludovic will be joining you from Paris. Cool. Now that's out of the way, you can have your ad blockers on again, and we're going to talk about App Plus Web. So before I start going into the details, I want to set some expectation about today's content. It's not going to be very technical. Today is more of an introductory session about what App Plus Web is, and we're going to be addressing some of the misconceptions about the product that might be caused by its name, by how it was marketed, and what it does do and what it doesn't do. And then in the second half of the presentation, we will have a demo by Ludovic, and we will go through the reporting options that is not immediately available in Universal Analytics, which is the version that most of you are probably using. And then across all these sections, we'll have time for Q&A. So again, please do not hesitate to ask anything in the live chat. So just setting the stage a bit, I think we kind of know this, but we forget. We forget how much time we spend in apps and not necessarily on web anymore. So most of our time is actually spent on mobile, and that's not new news. But most of that time as well is spent in apps and not in a browser. So if you kind of compare the web and app slices of this amazing pie chart, you'll see that this is probably something that you didn't know, like the gap being such a big gap. The reality is, I think, based on what I know from how we approach analysis, and based on I know from our clients' priorities, we know that apps are important, but this highlights how important they are. This also highlights why Google is re-engineering its product to make it a lot more app friendly and to make sure it can join the worlds of web and app a lot more efficiently than it was used to. I do urge you to check the ComScore report on this, which has this. So if you do a very simple Google search, you will get the report. It has very interesting figures, including a industry breakdown of this. So long story short, apps are very important, and we should invest time and effort and probably money to make sure we measure them accordingly. Okay, now that stage is set, we're going to talk about what we had before. So yesterday, you probably heard about Firebase. Firebase is actually essentially Google's app measurement. Well, it's app framework kind of product. You can build apps on Firebase as well, but it has a robust analytics module as part of that package. And for most of us, we probably are very familiar with Firebase already if we have any apps or if we have measured any apps with Google Analytics. And then we had Universal Analytics, which came around 2013, 2014. And although you can track apps with it, its metrics and its data schema is primarily oriented to websites. Some of the differences that we can highlight between Firebase and Universal Analytics is that, well, Firebase has been so far only app. If you hacked it, you could always track a website with it, but you would really want to hack it, which most people wouldn't. It has an event-based structure, as in it has events and it has users, and its events are what you make them. So if you want a page view or a screen view event, you need to make that event. You need to make sure that your parameters are attached to specific events, and everything is set up quite manually. The main advantage of that was your reports are always clean because you risking getting dirty data into those events and dirty parameters because you're setting them up yourself. It's very low. The data collection method was a mobile SDK, and then it has this standard array of standard Firebase reports where you could go into an event or go into a user property and see numbers against it. But most importantly, unlike the standard version of Google Analytics, it also has the BigQuery export. We won't go too much in detail in BigQuery today, but essentially it enables to transfer every single event collected by Firebase and push it into BigQuery, where you can do some advanced analysis using SQL. Now, this is a feature that already exists in Universal Analytics as well, but only on the paid version. If you have 360, you could have this as well. And almost all our clients have this option enabled, and we do some quite advanced analysis for them. So it's one of the main differentiators of the enterprise analytics stack that is offered by Google. So going back to Universal Analytics, as we said, it is web first. You are able to measure apps with it, but the entire data schema and collection mechanism is actually built based on websites in kind of top of mind. You are not actually able to create an app property anymore. There's a way to kind of hack it. You can create a web property, then create an app view within it. But what Google is trying to do is trying to actively push any app measurement to Firebase or App Plus Web, which we'll talk about. One of the main outcomes of being or outputs of being web first is being very session based. Again, this is useful for certain things. For example, a good marketing analytics or attribution report probably requires certain session-based metrics. But if you're interested in actual user engagement and lifetime value-based things, moving to user events is a much better concept. And then it has native and custom dimensions across 4 scopes that you know, and then it's primarily based on JavaScript. Okay, now comes App Plus Web, which is essentially a marriage between the two, but it's primarily based on the Firebase technology. So App Plus Web works based on the Firebase data schema. That is why when you see the data structure, it basically matches the Firebase data structure. It is event-based. It has user properties and event parameters. On the app side, there is nothing changing from an implementation point of view. It is still based on the Firebase SDK because it is still the same product in terms of data schema. On the website, there's a new JavaScript library that you need to use in order to have App Plus Web on your website, which we will talk about. And then the main differentiator is that it has a new set of report, or it has access to a new, more agile, more flexible reporting interface that Google calls Analysis Hub. If you have GA 360, you probably have seen and hopefully use the analysis section. It's basically an enriched version of that section with more reports, with more capabilities, and more flexibility. And then, just like Firebase itself, it also has access to the BigQuery export, even if you do not have 360. It doesn't really have a 360 version just yet. That is in the works, and we should hear more about it later on this year. But right now, it's in beta, and everyone should actually start using App Plus Web alongside Universal Analytics if you have an app, if you have a website, which we will talk about why that is important in a bit. It's called App Plus Web, and that kind of implies that you need to have an app to leverage it. That is simply not true. And I think that is something Google is trying to address from a marketing point of view as well. But the reality is this is the new version, the next generation of Google Analytics. So if you have a website and only a website, you should still be implementing and at least thinking about implementing App Plus Web on your website alongside your traditional Google Analytics, Universal Analytics setup. So we will talk about double tracking or dual tracking quite a bit. But essentially the recommended framework right now is to tag your website with both products, both App Plus Web and your traditional analytics product, to be ready for the future. And when we say the future, we don't mean too far ahead. But at some point, we know that Google will actually sunset Universal Analytics. It's going to be a while, so you don't have to be scared. You won't lose access to your reports right away. But having App Plus Web right now will ensure that you have historical data when that happens, so you can easily have your year-on-year comparisons without a hitch. So it is a third main update on the GA library. So we had Urchin before, which was acquired by Google around 2006, 2007. And then we had Universal Analytics launched in 2013, 2012, 13. And then we have this launch kind of next year, previous year, and now it's in general availability, still in beta, but it is a working, functioning, and quite a useful product. And as I just said, it is the future of analytics, and it will replace Universal Analytics entirely, even for websites. So you need to make sure that you have a plan to actually have this up and running on your websites and apps. So sunset date to be confirmed on the older versions of analytics. To be perfectly candid with you, the classical analytics hasn't been sunset yet, although we were expecting it to be sunset quite a while ago. So it will be a while, but it is worth saying that all Google Analytics resources and investment and engineering bandwidth is being focused on this new product. So Universal Analytics will not receive any updates going forward, but App Plus Web will be receiving a lot of audience activation updates, BigQuery related updates, reporting related updates, and so on, and also machine learning related updates. So you want this, and you want to have this to be future proof and get the benefits of Google's engineering working on their analytics products. What does that mean? That means you need to start double tracking or dual tagging now. So you need to have both the App Plus Web interface tracking code and the Universal Analytics tracking code up and running on your website. So if we talk about a bit why Google is doing this, why that move, didn't we like Universal Analytics in the first place? We did for sure, but we have to admit that its data model is based on a slightly outdated promise, which is everything happens in a session. And then you have some user-related options and so on, but being able to get that insight has been traditionally quite hard. And understanding the actual engagement, because you have so many standard data points and so many standard dimensions and metrics, um, you could get going right away with some standard reports, but to get to the real insights would always require quite a bit of advanced implementation anyway. And that is the same thing when App Plus Web. However, it becomes a lot cleaner because you have full control over what events are being measured and what dimensions are being attached to those events. All right. So in that regard, it also makes sure it has the exact same set of dimensions and metrics across both platforms. So you don't have to create a calculated field with screen view plus page view and so on, and then understand your engagement across both platforms. That is natively done. And since it has a success event or custom metric mindset with custom events, you can have the same set of reports across all platforms, which will get rid of a lot of the confusion and which will make your analysis and reports a lot less vague if you report across different platforms. Because of the analysis hub feature, which Ludovic will demo, it's a lot more flexible and it's a lot more efficient when you want to slice and dice the data, which makes ad hoc analysis a lot easier. So if you, with traditional GA, you probably use a lot of custom reports, or you go in Data Studio, try to slice and dice your data, or if you're quite advanced, you probably go in BigQuery and do some SQL magic. The new Analysis Hub interface takes away some of that effort and just gives you a really good basis for analysis right within the interface. And you probably have heard a lot about artificial intelligence, whether it's real AI or not, it's beyond the point. But what we know is Google is working a lot of anomaly detection or alerting systems based on machine learning and analysis of the data collected by its products. So we have an intelligence tab in Universal Analytics, but that tab hasn't been updated for a while with the new features, and it won't be updated as far as we know with the new features. Those new anomaly detection and alerting mechanisms will only come to App Plus Web. App Plus Web even today has an hourly alerting system, for example, which is a big plus on Google Universal Analytics daily alerting system, which would only alert you at 8 p.m. The next day. So all these advancements, all these upgrades will be only coming to App Plus Web. So taking a little break and seeing if we have any questions in the chat. I don't think we have it yet, but feel free to ask it now. I'll take a half a minute breather, or feel free to ask it later. We will address them later. Ten more seconds. All right, I'm hoping there will be some questions later on, guys. Okay, so that was kind of the overall context behind App Plus Web and what Google is trying to do with it and how and just our advice of making sure that you have it on your websites even if you don't have an app. Now we're going to talk a bit more about how App Plus Web actually does what it does and what some bits about what you need to do in order to implement it. So if you go to Google Analytics interface today, and if you go to the admin menu and create a new property, you will be seeing this set of choices. Here you have web, you have app, and you have App Plus Web. So this is a bit confusing because the second option and the third option is actually the same option. You would be creating an App Plus Web property because, as we will talk about in the subsequent slide, the Firebase SDK, so the app side of things, is exactly the same from an implementation and from an interface point of view as the App Plus Web side of things, because that is what the data schema and the model is based on. If you want to track your app with Universal Analytics, what you want to do is go to create a web property and create an app view within that property. Now, this is hidden deliberately because Google is pushing at least people who are not as knowledgeable as you guys are to use App Plus Web, and that is a good thing. But Universal Analytics has still has some good tracking features as well, and especially if you have Google Analytics 360, we would recommend as an expert to dual tag your app as well, and we will talk about how it's done. So there is a significant difference in terms of the organization of the interfaces and the collection mechanism. So on the right, we have Universal Analytics, and you are probably all very familiar with account, property, and view kind of waterfall. So properties would be the actual tracking properties that you implement on your websites or apps. Views are one level down, and it takes an additional level of configuration or data processing. You can have different time zones of views, you can have different currencies of views, you can have different filters to include or exclude traffic, you can change what you see in dimensions slightly with search and replace filters, and so on. So views kind of gives you a lot of flexibility in terms of changing or filtering the data that is collected by the JavaScript code or the SDK. Now, for now, you don't have this concept of views. So you only, in App Plus Web, you only have data streams, and a data stream is essentially has its own tracking code. So whatever you track will end up in the property. Luckily, the property configuration or the data stream configuration does give you a lot of options about which events to kind of activate, disable, or enable, and which parameters to actually put in those events. But you won't be able to create a view filtering out some of the traffic as you could with the Universal Analytics. There's a roadmap which might include such capability, but right now, be advised that that is not there. Essentially, when you create an App Plus Web property, you add different streams into it. Streams would be the properties of Universal Analytics. So we have property, which is more like, which holds different streams. And usually you would have one stream for each platform. You would have an iOS stream, an Android stream, and a website stream. So as you can see, this is a screenshot of our 55 website, and we only have a web stream because we do not have an app. However, we have tagged our website with App Plus Web because we want to be ready for the future, and we advise for you guys to add the same. You'll realize the measurement ID is slightly different than the usual UA parameters. It starts with G, then there is a measurement code. So this is how the UA account property structure is being replaced by this G tag structure. So what is different in terms of implementation across apps and websites when it comes to App Plus Web, but also Universal Analytics? So this is before App Plus Web what we had. Essentially, the apps would be tagged by the Firebase SDK, which would feed the Firebase reports. On top of that, with some minimal configuration and coding on your website, in your apps, you would have the mobile tag management GTM SDK as well. So it's called GTM for Firebase, Analytics for Firebase, or GTM v5. You are able to send the event information and screen view information and session information from Firebase to Universal Analytics as well. And on the web side of things, you only had Universal Analytics. You could implement it with GTM or GTag, and so on. And then from an enterprise analytics plus web tracking point of view, to be able to merge that data, we would advise you to have double tracking on your app and single tracking with Universal Analytics in your website. Now, with App Plus Web, what we get to is essentially for apps, nothing much changes because it's still being powered by the Firebase SDK. So just by some interface-driven options, you can enable App Plus Web reports for your apps if you already have Firebase tracking and Firebase events. For websites, it's quite different, and you need to actually have another JavaScript library on your website to be able to do this. There are three ways of doing that. The first way is what I'm hoping most of you will have, and we'll go and do right away after this webinar, is if you have an established data layer and a Google Tag Manager container that is fed by that data layer, you can go on and add the App Plus Web tags on your website, and you can publish that container and you will immediately start collecting the App Plus Web signals from your website alongside your traditional Universal Analytics. Now, if you don't have GTM, but if you have Universal Analytics through GTag, hard-coded, you can go to the property settings of that Universal Analytics property. And if you go into tracking info and tracking code, you will be seeing a new interface option called connected tags. You can add your App Plus Web ID to this connected tag. So without coding a single line of code, you will be able to start feeding your App Plus Web property with this based on your traditional Universal Analytics. Now, the third option, which I think it will happen very rarely, if you don't have anything or for whatever reason you would like to hard code this from scratch, you will need to go into your newly created data stream, get your gtag.js that features your new App Plus Web Stream ID or property ID, and you will be coding your website from scratch. So again, if you have an established Universal Analytics, either through GTM and GTag, it is quite easy, and you could be up and running within the hour. So before the demo, we can take some questions as well. So one of the first questions from Kubilai is do we think that there will be any improvement in MCF reports? So connecting App Plus Web into single journey without user ID feature. So I'm assuming, so when we say MCF reports, we talk about multi-channel funnel reports, which is the basis of attribution in Google Analytics and Universal Analytics. To the best of our knowledge, I can neither confirm nor deny this, but there are plans to improve that, and there might be plans to improve that based on some Google Signals features. So without the presence of a user ID, being able to stitch some sessions together. Now, there are a lot of implications on this from a GDPR point of view, from a data processing point of view, and so on. So we don't actually know if this will happen or not, but we know that there will be some Google Signal-powered reports outside of MCF for sure. Whether that will come into MCF, we don't know. But at some point, attribution reports will make their way into App Plus Web. You don't have that at the moment, but that is in the works.
Hi everyone. So as Jen mentioned, I'm Ludo. I'm based in Paris, and yeah, you mentioned that I'm also the lead singer. Besides working at 55, I'm also lead singer for a rock band called Driver. I'm not going to sing you a song, but I'll definitely drive you through the interface of App Plus Web Property (AWP). So let me start with that. I'll just go to the Universal Analytics interface. So you might recognize this interface with account, property, and view. Let's say that I want to create a new property. So I'll just click on property. And yeah, so then I will select the app and web property. I think there's something wrong. What happened? Am I live or not? I'll just ask everyone. Yep. I don't know if you heard what I said. No, I don't need to restart. Sorry about that. That's the tricky thing while being confined is that we need to get acquainted to the webinar way. So sorry about that. Anyway, I was trying to create my app and web property. So I'll just like click on this and then continue. And as you can see, it's just like a regular type of property, just like Universal Analytics. There's a name, the industry category, the time zone, and the currency. So you need this time zone thing. Otherwise, the day will not be calculated according to the place where where you want the data to be set to. So basically, if you're on the west coast of the US, or in Paris, or in London, or in Asia, you need the right time zone, right? And you need the right currency as well for maybe your e-commerce data. So that's what you can do when you create your app and web property. And then you get that kind of interface. So you've got the property settings, you can see that. And then you've got what we call the data streams. So Jan mentioned that is the way it works. Basically, it's the different types of way to send data to AWP. You've got Android, iOS, or web data streams. Let's take a look at the web one. So you can find the URL that is linked to it, just like for Google Analytics properties, Universal Analytics properties. And you've got the measurement ID. That is basically the equivalent of the property ID. So that's the ID that you will use in order to send data to this data stream. You've got also a stream ID that is a different thing. You also can see this little thing called enhanced measurement. So it's a feature that enables you to automatically track a few things. So if you activate it, basically some interaction will be tracked automatically once you have placed your tag on your website. It will be a very basic way to tag things. So it will capture the page views based on page load, the scrolls, etc. But if you want like an enterprise level tagging, this will definitely not be enough. You don't want this feature. It will not be enough for your needs if you need like really accurate tagging. So it's convenient if you want like to tag your website in like a jiffy. You just toggle it on and you got and you place the tag and you got it. But I'll turn it off. So Jan mentioned the different types of implementation. So the one with Google Tag Manager will get into that. But as you can see, there's this little thing, connected site tags. So if you're using the G tag, that's where you can place the ID of other tags, or you can do that based on your Universal Analytics tag and place the ID, the measurement ID of your AWP tag. So that's the way it works, basically. Let's take a look at GTM. What happens in GTM is that you can create a new tag, and you can select now in the different templates of tags. You've got these two new templates, so they're beta because this is a beta solution. The configuration for app plus web and the event. Let's take a look at the configuration. Basically, you would enter here the measurement ID. So I could take it from here. Okay, I could copy it and just paste it there. Or as you should do it, create the variable in GTM that would hold this measurement ID and enter it there. And you can use also user properties directly in this configuration tag so that you set this user properties for every single event that will be sent. You can also send automatically like a page view event based on the page load or not if you don't want it. And obviously you will set up the right trigger in order to make sure that it is loaded on every page of the website you want to tag. Then once you've done that, you can create another tag to create events. So I'll use this event template. And as you can see, I have to select the configuration tag that is linked to. So I'll select this one. Then you need to enter a name. So this name can be page view. It could be item view. It could be like begin, checkout, etc. Actually, Google has selected a range of various names that you can use for your events. And they have recommended events for each type of vertical, for instance, CPG or retail, insurance, finance in general. They have dedicated types of events that you can use, some kind of recommended nomenclature, basically, that you can use in order to get the relevant reports for you. You can use on top of that event parameters to qualify each event with some additional data in order to understand exactly what happens. And we'll see in the interface what it does in the end. And you can also add a user property per event if needed. So that's the way we work. And basically what I've done here is that I've set up a couple of tags. So you've got the configuration tag, And then you've got a few events. So the view item, add to cart, begin checkout, e-commerce purchase. So this is an implementation on our demo website that is an e-commerce website based on Magento. It's just a demo, but basically it's this classic e-commerce website. So that's the reason why I selected these tags. They make sense for this implementation. So now let's get into the AWP reporting interface. So this is the home page. So basically here it's kind of a dashboard. You've got several cards with typical metrics that you would need, some kind of overview of your tagging. As you can see here, this is 55.com's website, and we've got some users. We've got the number of events, and you can see the evolution of that, the number of conversions. We'll see what it does after, what it is afterwards. This is for the last 7 days. You can also take a look at real-time data. You can create some insights. So for now, it's not like an automatic way to do it. So basically, you could add an alert on something like anomaly in daily users, for instance. In the future, there will be automatic alerting, as Jen mentioned. You can see the user activity metrics, the user by geographical areas, and here you can see the views by the page views, so basically by page title and or screen class. So as we can see, it's page and screen because it's app and web, so we can have both tagging, and therefore it's one dimension for both interfaces. The event count, so that's the list of events and the number of times that they happen during this period. And you can get a couple of reports regarding your media activity. So where my users come from in terms of medium, and where they come from in terms of platform. Okay. Based on that, I'll just take a look at the pages and screens. I'll start there. So here you will recognize like the content reports in the behavior section of Universal Analytics. So it's based on the page title. We could have personalized that and enter like a dedicated page name in order to identify each of these pages, but here it relies on the page titles. And then you can see the number of views for these different pages, the number of users that's has displayed this page, the number of new users in case you want to understand, for instance, the efficiency of a landing page that you may have created for your SEO, for instance. And then here you can see this new metrics called engagement time. So it's a little bit different. It's not like the time that was spent on the website. Time spent, average time spent, is definitely a universal analytics metric. Here it's a metric assessing of the time that you interacted with the website. So it's an automatic metric set by AWP, and it will be closer to if you're used to leveraging UX analysis solutions, for instance. It's closer to what you can find in these solutions. It's the time where the user interacted with the website. And then you can find out whether the user actually did some other events after displaying this page. So let's say that I want to take a look at the number of clicks on a given CTA after displaying this page. So I can select this metric, and then I can see that, for instance, people having displayed the homepage of the 55.com website, 5 of them have actually clicked on the CTA. And then you can use the conversions that you have selected, well, configured before. I'll show you that. So that's about pages and screens. You can also add a secondary dimension if you want, like, for instance, the device category, if you want to break down this view by desktop, mobile, tablets, for instance. So let's take a look now at the events. So this is the list of events that are set on the 55.com website. So you can see that we've got a page view, event, scroll. The session start is actually an automatic event. We didn't have to set it up. It's automatically calculated. The first visit is another one, but all the other ones are events that we set up with GTM on the website. And here you can see this number 4 and number 3 here, and that is to display the event parameters that are associated to this event. So here I've got 3 event parameters: office, location, preview site, and site language. And as you can see here, I can configure that. I can add other types of event parameters. If I send them in my tagging, I will be able to display that in the interface. So there is a limited number of event parameters. You can only configure 100 event parameters, like text or numeric ones. And this total is not for every single event. It's like number of event parameters times events that you can set up. So 100. So that's a limitation. Maybe this will change in the future, but for now, it's definitely something that will a little bit limit your usage of the solution. Still, you can use that for a couple of event parameters, 100 I mentioned, times events. So let's take a look at the report that is behind that. I'll just click on the event, and that will display the detailed report for this event page view. So here you can see again the number of users that actually for whom this event happened, and you can see the number of total events, and you can see this event count per user so that you understand how many page views there has been per user. So as you can see, it's 2.6 on the 55 website. Here you can also find the what we saw before, so the list of pages, and you can use either page path or page title, for instance, in order to understand what happened. And what you can find at the bottom of it, and that is interesting here, interesting thing here, sorry, it's the event parameters. Okay, so you can break down the page views by site language or office location. So here we can see that basically France is the top office in terms of page views for 55.com. After that, what you can do is you can actually use something that you will recognize from the Universal Analytics interface. It's kind of like a segment, except you can actually use what we call audiences. So here I clicked on Add Comparison, and as you might know, you can add, like, for instance, a comparison between like mobile. Okay, I'll select a device category and mobile. So I will apply it, and then I will have this segment applied, that is device category include mobile. And then I can see that basically, I'll just use the last 7 days. Basically on 55 website, the mobile traffic is quite low, actually. It's rather a desktop traffic. And that makes sense because of what we do, right? We target companies, so people will rather browse the website on a desktop, on a computer. All right, so what you can do here too is you can actually use an audience, and we'll see what an audience is. Here I could select, for instance, purchasers. That is an automatic audience that is created when you create your property. If you've got e-commerce tagging, then purchasers will be an audience that you will be able to use, but you will be able to create as many, well, almost as many audiences that you want. All right, so this is about events, right? Let's take a look now at the conversions. So in the events, I can toggle them in order to define them as conversions. So for instance, on the 55 website, we consider that generate lead and select content. Select content is rather for our blog, and generate lead is obviously whenever you fill in a contact form on the 55.com website. So once you have selected these conversions, you can take a look at a couple of reports, and that is rather for media purposes, okay? So let's say that, for instance, I'd like to know what kind of source generated the most select content conversion on the 55 website. So here I can see like the event count for this select content event. And here I can select the type of attribution model I want to use. So for now, with AWP, you only have two models that you can use, the last click or the Google Ads last click, basically. The last engagement will be based on impressions, but for now, it's not possible to link AWP with Google Campaign Manager. So it's not possible to have that post view thing. So you can select like different dimensions, such as source, medium, campaign. There is no a channel grouping for now, but obviously that is something that will be available in the future. And here, as you can see, basically it's the referral medium that generates the most select content conversions for 55.com. All right. So after this media reports, let's take a look at the real-time overview. So that's just below the home report, home cards. And as you can see, you can follow the number of users that are actually browsing the website and their geographical area. You can take a look at what they're browsing right now and what kind of events that triggered. So that's convenient for like checking your audiences and make sure that everything works well, especially when you're launching like the sales period if you're a retailer or if you're a publisher and you want to take a look at the articles that are like the trend right now. But there's one thing on top of what you can find in Universal Analytics, because it's kind of similar to what we have in GAV1. In this new version of Google Analytics, there is this view user snapshot. And the user snapshot enables you to see exactly the list of events that were followed by a user. So right now, it doesn't find a user because there might, like, it needs to be a new session that would come up on this report, but I will show you that in the slides with the debug view that is a little bit similar to that. So let me get back to the presentation. So the debug view it's kind of this like list of interactions of your user a long time, and you can see exactly what happened on the website. So that's very convenient in order to check that your tagging is okay. It is very important to check, for instance, for apps, because as you may know, whenever you submit an app to a store, then, well, once it's activated, users might like update their app. So if you've got the wrong tagging, then you will have to resubmit a new app after correcting it, and then you've got users with the wrong version of your tagging. So you need to check that. And that's a very convenient way to use it. It requires a little bit of code, a small piece of code in your app if you want to use the debug view. And on a website, it's basically based on a Google Analytics a plugin on your browser. So that's a very easy thing to use on the web. And as you can see, you can also like select the different devices to see if there are some issues based on a device. So that's a very convenient way to ease the QA phase, the quality assessment part of your tagging. Another report that you will be able to find is the technology report. And as you can see, there is the web report, the app report, and the cross-platform report. And this will definitely help you understand whether users are rather focused on one or the other platform, and whether users are actually using both platforms. So that could be useful. And then you can get to like a dedicated platforms report with the details of this data. I mentioned the audience before, so you can use this feature in order to create directly audiences and make sure that you don't have to select the definition every time you want to do comparison. You can just use your audiences. It's actually a similar interface as the one for segments, except it's much faster and it's actually much easier to use than segments. It looks like it, so you won't be lost. And it's actually really convenient to use. The thing is that for now, audiences are not retroactive. So that means that you have to create your audiences prior to the data being collected in order to be able to use it in reports. So you should do that whenever you create your property. You need to set up the audiences that you want to follow. In the future, that might change, but for now, it's not retroactive. Let's take a look now at the analysis interface. For those who use Google Analytics 360, you might have used this interface with Universal Analytics. So it's available with the current version of Google Analytics, and this new version also has it, plus some benefits with new reports. And one of the benefits is basically this segment overlap report enables you to, well, display also like the overlap for users using both apps and web, and make sure and understand that, break it down by, for instance, a user segment or by level of user engagement, etc., etc. So that's a very convenient way to analyze deeper what actually users do, how they behave with your platforms. So this tool is basically a very convenient way for you to combine your dimensions and metrics, and it's actually free with this new AWP version, whereas it was not in the Universal Analytics version. You had to purchase a 360 license in order to get access to it. And what you will see is that there are additional types of data viz that you can use there. So in the Universal Analytics interface, you've got the exploration, the funnel analysis, and the segment overlap. But here you can find also the cohort analysis. That's what you've got here. It enables you to understand which users actually are coming back to your website. So what kind of activity did this operation, did this campaign drive a repeat user of my website? So that's useful to understand the efficiency of your different operations, whether they're media or promotions, etc., in terms of activity. I will not resist like showing you a couple of reports directly in the interface, especially the path analysis one. So let me show you that. So this is a new report wrote by AWP, the path analysis. And let me start over, it will be easier. Actually, I could select a path from a starting point or from an ending point. And what we'll do is that it will display the sequence of behavior of my user. So I will start, for instance, from the home page of 55. Okay, I'll select this home page. And here I can see that on this home page, I've got 329 page views. And then after the home page, 41 page views of, well, again, the home page. Oh, no, it's not actually the home page. It's actually the services, the different offers that 55 shows. So then I can click this offer, and conveniently, I can see that this 41 page views then gives other page views, like 12 page views back to the home page actually. 6 ones will go to our technology partners, and then some will go to, well, another section such as join 55's team, etc. So that is a very convenient way to understand exactly what happens after something. And what you can do is you can do it backwards. So you can start from the endpoint. So let's say that I want to know what happened prior to conversion, such as, I don't know, let's say generate lead, okay? Okay, so we've got 8 leads, and prior to that there were page views. I can use like the pages, page titles, and then I can see that, well, obviously the leads are coming from the contact 55, so that's the English version, or the contacté 55, the French version. And then if I go backwards, I can click and see what happened before. Okay, actually one of them came from the Tea House. The Tea House is our blog, whereas some of them, 2 of them actually, came from the offer page. And then I can go back and back. So that's a very convenient feature to understand the user behavior, the user experience in general. So yeah, there are other types of viz, such as the user lifetime. Sadly, this data viz is not working well because it's a beta. It's just been released. and Google is working on that. There's also User Explorer interface that looks a bit like what you can find in Universal Analytics. So I won't go deeper into that for now. All right. Would you have any questions? Let's take a look at that. I'll just display the matrix for questions. Okay, so, oh yeah, actually there was a question, but Jan tried to answer, and I don't know why it was cut. So the question was, do you think that there will be any improvement in MCF reports? So we saw that a little bit actually in the interface. Today there is no dedicated metric, right? For now, there are only these two attribution models, but obviously Google is working on like additional attribution models. And actually within analysis, you will be able to use some metrics that will be based on some attribution model, such as a first visits or, well, basically a first click based conversion. So that's the kind of things that will happen, but it's not live yet. Another question is, how is the ID shared between the two environments? That's an important question. Yes, if you want to reconciliate app and web behavior, then you need an ID to do that. Like an ID linked to this user. So today you can do that using the user ID. So if you push the user ID in your app and on the website, it will be able to reconcile the two and count number of users based on that, deduplicated users. Another way to do so would be to use the Google Signals feature. The Google Signals feature is not live yet for AWP, and also it requires like checking the privacy. For those who don't know what it is, in Universal Analytics, there is this Google Signals features that enable you to use Google's ID, so the device graph of Google, in order to reconciliate two sessions of the same users on different devices. So it would be like an anonymous way to count your users, deduplicated, between the two interfaces. Another question is, how would be handled the custom dimensions migrations? That's a good question. There is no custom dimensions in AWP. So there are two things that you can do. If you want to qualify some interactions, you can use event parameters. Actually, some of the current custom dimensions in Universal Analytics wouldn't be useful because you would use events instead. So events will enable you to like remove some custom elements that you would need. And also, obviously, if they are linked to a user, then you can use a user property. Let's say that you want to tag buyers or logged in versus unlogged users, then you can use a user property for that. So that's a very different way of thinking, and that requires a little bit of time to get acquainted to this event way. Will UTM parameters and dynamic link be supported in AWP? Yes, they are. Yeah, indeed. Of course. Yes. It's pretty much the same process as with Firebase / Universal Analytics. For e-commerce tracking events, should we use purchase or e-commerce purchase? Oh, yeah, that's a good question. So there was the possibility to use e-commerce purchase in the past, but I don't want to make a mistake, but I'm pretty sure the current one should be purchase only. And the e-commerce purchase will be deprecated in the future. So it was the name of the event in the past for Firebase e-commerce. I don't want to. I'm not 100% sure that it's purchase or e-commerce purchase now. I think it's purchase. It's easy. Just take a look at the new documentation. For the path analysis, are you able to see the events in between each screen view page title? Actually, you can select either page view or screen title, page title or screen title, or the name of the event. So you can use either of these steps in the process. You just select what you want to display for each step of the way, and you will be able to display those. All right, thank you very much. It was really nice presenting this new solution. Let's just jump to a quick conclusion. And basically what we think you should remember here is that there is this app plus web solution that is the new version of Google Analytics. It's V2. And it is providing like new features regarding machine learning, regarding the flexibility of what you can do in your tagging, in your reporting. I mentioned the features in analysis as well. So new powerful features. But just remember that it's still work in progress. I mentioned a couple of limitations. You cannot do everything you want with the reports. We mentioned the fact that the attribution models are not all available. So what you should do, because it's a beta solution, is you should start with dual tagging in order to benefit from these new features and to prepare the feature, to get acquainted to the way it behaves, to prepare for your future of analytics. And we think that this way you will be able to leverage all the power of Google Analytics in general. We didn't, I don't remember if we mentioned the fact that the BigQuery export, for instance, is a feature that you can already use with AWP, and you don't have to pay a GA360 license for that. So if you're using GA standard and you want to get access to your raw data, it would be a very convenient way also to leverage that. So there are like some really advantages to set it up. Today, not everything is like fully set up, but Google is working on tremendous features for the future. So that would be a shame to miss that. All right, thank you very much. Have a great day. Thanks a lot for attending to this webinar. And since we're trying to improve all these webinars, please share your feedback. There is this little form that you can find on the YouTube page or in the live chat, and please give us a little bit of feedback on that. Thank you very much. Have a great day.